Now let me turn you over to Hale Dwoskin, the CEO and Director of Training of the Sedona Institute.
Good morning and welcome. I'm glad you could join us this morning. What we'll be doing over the next 4 days and over the next 8 segments of this tape is learning a wonderful and powerful way of letting go of those uncomfortable feelings, that stress that's been stopping you from having everything that you choose. Back in 1976, I was in the same place that you are now. I was about to embark on something I knew very little about. I'd heard many good things about it, but I really wasn't sure what I was getting myself into. But as the course unfolded and as I just stayed open to the process, I was very happily surprised. Actually, it way exceeded all my expectations. In fact, that's why I'm standing here. This many years later, I've gotten so much benefit from this course that I've decided to help others. And just to give you some of the areas in my life that have changed, I've lost weight, my relationships are better, I've used it to become successful in business. In fact, I can't think of an area in my life that hasn't been positively changed from using this technique. But the thing that I like most of all is that as I've been using this technique over the years, it keeps getting better. The more I use it, the better it gets. And also, a wonderful thing is it happens as you keep using this technique. The more you use it, the calmer you feel inside, no matter what is going on around you. So now, no matter what happens in my life, even if it does disturb me for a moment, there's still a sense of equanimity within me that never leaves. Now also, those of you who are taking the class this morning and those of you who are going to be participating at home have the added benefit of having 2 instructors. Usually there's just 1 instructor in the class. But what we'll be doing for the benefit of all of you, those of you here and those of you at home, is we'll be having, in addition to me teaching part of the class, Nikki Warner, one of our chief instructors, will also be joining us and presenting some of the material, helping you at home release, as well as me. So I'd like to have Nikki Warner come up and introduce her, and then I'll let her take the next part.
Well, good morning and welcome everybody. And to those of you at home, welcome. It's just wonderful to have you here. I took the course myself 5.5 years ago, and I took it in New York. As you can probably tell, I am not from this country. I'm from England. So first of all, those of you here, if there's anything I say that you're not quite clear about or a phrase I use that you're not familiar with, please feel free to stop me. As I was saying though, I took the course 5.5 years ago, and I was in New York working in the garment district when I heard about the seminar. And it was my employer who told me about it. I took the course not really knowing what to expect at all. And what I found was some very profound changes really started to take place almost immediately. I found that the technique started to change every area of my life. It started to change how I was at work. It started to change how I felt about myself. It started to change how my interaction and my relationships with the people I was meeting, new people, also with my family when I actually went back to England. And in fact, what it did is I would definitely have described myself as a shy, fairly reserved person at first. And what it did was it really helped me to break out of that. It really helped me in terms of, instead of holding back from people, I started to be much more assertive. I started not feeling kind of afraid of people. I started wanting to really be with them. I felt much more open about people, much better about myself. And the more I used the technique, the more that just kind of kept growing inside until it just started to change something. And in fact, that in itself really started to change every area of my life very profoundly. So you're going to have a lot to look forward to over the next 8 tapes and this next 4 days, because you're going to find things that are life-changing for you in areas that you're interested in areas you want to improve. And it's just going to open a tremendous amount of doors. And as you use the technique, you're going to find it just keeps on getting better and better. I've been using it now for 5.5 years, and it's still as fresh as the day that I learnt it. In fact, I get more gains today because they keep on growing. And so you're going to have that to look forward to, ongoing, as you use the technique. So you're in for a wonderful surprise these next 8 tapes and these next 4 days. We're going to have a great time. Well, let me introduce to you the course materials that we'll be using. Those of you at home, there's really only 3 things that you're going to need. And I'll go over those with you, that is, apart from yourself also, and here in the group. The first is the workbook. Workbook, week 1. You'll notice that you have several workbooks there, 5 in all. We will just be using this one workbook for the time being. So don't worry about the others. I'll let you know when you need to pull those out and use them. The other is this small 3x5 book. This is a book we call our Gains book, and you're going to be needing this right throughout the 8 segments of the tape and all of the time that you're in the live seminar here, and in fact ongoing from then also. So make sure you have this around and handy. So the third thing you're going to need is this large chart. You'll notice in your package at home that you have this. It's a chart with a lot of emotions on. We're going to be using this a lot in the next 2 days of the class and also in the next 4 tapes. So have it somewhere handy where you can look at it. You'll be using it as reference a terrific amount. Okay, so let me hand you back to Hale. He's going to tell you some more about the course.
The course that we're going to be experiencing together, those of you here and those of you at home, is very different than anything you've experienced before. What I mean by that is many of us have taken classes where there's a lot of information that we have to remember. You'll notice as we go through this course, it's not about the information, but it's about learning a skill or learning an ability that we actually all already have, but we seldom use, and that's our ability to let go. And the whole course is presented in a way that it's experiential as opposed to intellectual. And so as much as you can, as you're working here in the classroom and also as you're viewing the tapes at home, try to feel, not think. Focus here even. When I ask you what you're now feeling is, see if you can focus on this part of your anatomy. Now, if you don't feel something here right away, don't worry about it. As the course is designed to help you become more in touch with your emotions, in addition to learning how to let them go. But the important thing to remember is that it is experiential. If someone had told you, had given you a book about how to ride a bicycle, and you read it cover to cover, I'm sure you would agree that even after reading the book about how to ride a bicycle, if you just read a book and you never had any experience on the bicycle, someone handed you a bicycle and said, "Here, ride," I think you might have gotten a few pedals and you'd be on the floor. Because it's not, again, riding a bicycle is also an experiential thing. But just like riding a bicycle, once you learn how to ride a bicycle, you get on the bicycle. Once you've gotten that sense of balance, you don't really think about it anymore. You just ride. The same thing will happen as you use this technique. The more you work with it, you'll get to a point where it becomes second nature. You just get on the bicycle and you keep riding. And so it becomes, even though you have to think about it a little, you have to apply yourself a little bit in the beginning. As you keep going with it, it gets easier and easier to do. Also, the process itself can be subtle at times. Most of us are hoping that when we learn anything new, that the sky is going to open and Gabriel is going to come down with his horn. Well, that might not happen the first morning or on your first tape segment. Now, I'm not saying it won't happen any point during this course, but what will happen as you start applying the technique is that you see that each thing we do sets a solid foundation for the next thing we do. And all it requires is your persistence. The more you apply yourself to using this technique, the more you'll get out of it. And you won't always feel a release right away. Sometimes you'll be working with a technique, you'll know something is going on, but you're not even sure what. In fact, I had someone who took the class about a year ago in Houston, and she was participating, but at the end of the class, one of the last things she shared in the class is that, I still have yet to feel my first release. I haven't felt a thing. However, I came to the class as an insomniac. I hadn't slept in 20 years. And since the first night of the class, I've been sleeping totally okay. and then she went through a whole other list of benefits she had gotten. So if you're not sure you're releasing, just be persistent, because you might not be aware of every release. But if you keep practicing the technique, it gets easier and easier to do until you'll be sure that you're doing it. Also, the releasing is done through a series of questions. You'll see that the questions might even seem a little unusual in the beginning, but if you bear with it and just follow along as I ask you the questions at home or ask you the questions here, or as you're watching others being guided through the process, you'll see that the questions will make a lot more sense as you practice them. What the questions are designed to do is give you an experience of letting go. And they don't have to make sense at first. In fact, they might not. But if you're willing to keep practicing the questions and keep working with them, you'll see that they'll start to more and more facilitate that process of letting go. And another thing about questions, if you have questions come up as you're sitting here or as you're sitting at home, you notice that we handle questions very differently during this course. If I just gave you an intellectual answer to every question that you had, I think you can see that you'd end up with lots of more information, but not necessarily with a way to find your own answers. And what we like to do here, and what we're trying to do on this whole 4-day course and this whole 8 segments of the tape, is get each one of you to the point where whenever you have a question, whether it's about this releasing process or anything in your life, that you can find your own answers. Once you've learned how to find your own answers, that's always with you. So if you have a question, please ask it. However, I might answer it with a question. What I mean by that is if you have a question, I'll probably try to help you find what the feeling is that's causing you to ask that question. Once you release it, you'll see you'll start to find your own answers. And you at home, if questions come up, try the same thing. Try using the process on the question itself, and you'll see that you'll start to find your own answers. Also, as far as participating is concerned, it's very important to participate. The more you participate, the more you'll get out of the class. Now, there are many ways to participate. If you're here actually in the class, if you volunteer to work with the instructor, you'll get benefit out of that. But there are many other ways to participate. One, it's very important, both those of you here and those of you at home, to do your best to practice the releasing process as others are being guided through the process. What I mean by that is, even if their problem is not something you can relate to right away, just focus on what your feeling is in the moment. And as they're being guided through the process, just allow yourself to release along with them. The more you do that, the more you'll get out of the class. And that practicing on your own is how you make this whole technique your own. Now, another important way of participating, for those of you here and those of you at home, is working in the workbooks. We're going to emphasize that point a lot, because if the more you work with the workbooks, work with each release sheet, take as much time as you need to work with them, the more you'll get out of this class. In fact, the workbooks, working with those release sheets, is the key to really learning the release technique in a way that will be yours for the rest of your life. So it's very important to participate in that way. Do your best to work in the workbooks and keep working in the workbooks until you've completed them. Also, this is a do-it-yourself technique. What I mean by that is, I think you can see already from the way I've described it, you're really going to have to do it. All we are here to do, Nikki and I, is to facilitate the process that once started will be then something that you can do on your own. So it is a do-it-yourself technique. And again, that's something I'll remind you about quite often as the course goes on. Because our goal, by the end of the 4 days of this class and by the end of the 8 tapes, is to make you 100% self-sufficient. So that if you never see anyone from the Sedona Institute again, if you never look at another tape, you have the technique inside for you to use from then on. It's yours 100%, and that's very important to us. We want to make you 100% self-sufficient. Also, I'd like to suggest that you leave your preconceived notions behind. Many of you have heard many things about this course, or you've got a flyer in the mail, or you heard about it on television. But however you found out about the course, you probably have expectations based on what you heard and also based on other classes you may have done before. As best you can, put those aside. It's kind of like if someone told you to go see a terrific movie and they made the mistake of telling you a lot about the plot. What's the first thing you do when the lights go down in the theater? you try to forget everything you've heard about it. So you can just be there in the moment and experience the course moment to moment. If you're willing to do that with these tapes and here in the class, you'll see you'll get a tremendous amount out of the course. So whatever you've heard about it, whatever you've ever done to grow, put that aside for now and just be here with what we're doing. So again, you're really in for a treat. These 4 days and the 8 segments of these tapes are going to give you a lot more than you can even imagine at this point.